Good morning.
Good morning, Chair. Would you like us to begin housekeeping?
Yes, please.
Thank you for participating in today's meeting. If attending in person, please do not connect to Zoom or teleconference while in the room, and please silence all devices. If translation is provided, click on the globe at the bottom of your screen to select either English or Spanish. Public comment will be taken after each item. If you're in the auditorium and wish to comment, please use the iPads located in the lobby or complete a blue speaker card as available. If you need assistance, please find a South Coast AQMD employee. Speakers may be limited to a total of 3 minutes or less for all agenda items. Times may be shortened to ensure all speakers can be heard. A countdown timer will be displayed on the screen for each public comment. More time will be allotted for Spanish translation that is not simultaneous. For questions or issues on making a public comment, please call the public advisor at 909-396-2432. That's 909-396-2432. Please adhere to the speaker time limit and treat others with courtesy, civility, and respect. Failure to do so can result in your mic being muted or you being removed from the meeting. Be aware that this meeting is being recorded. By participating, you authorize recording of audio and visual content presented during the live event and consent to subsequent use of the recording in the public domain by South Coast AQMD.
Are we waiting for members to join?
Well, we have a quorum. I see Councilmember Rahman, Supervisor Mitchell, and Board Member McAllen. So we believe we have a quorum.
Okay, let's do
And
it.
Supervisor Hagman is always here to step in if necessary.
All right, let's do a roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem McAllen.
Here.
Supervisor Mitchell.
Present.
Supervisor Perez. Absent. Councilmember Rahman. Absent. Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez. Absent. And Chair Delgado.
I'm here.
We have a quorum.
Oh, I see.
Hi, good morning. Carlos Rodriguez here as well.
Great. All right. Well, let's get started. I did want to announce for anybody who's joining us online that we have to be done by 10:30 for stationary source. So depending on the number of speakers who join us today, I may have to limit time. But let's go ahead and get started with information item number 1 with Ian.
Good morning. So we have one presentation today here to talk about the draft cooperative agreement that we're working on with the ports of LA and Long Beach. So let's go to the next slide. So just a quick refresher, this seems like sometimes very long ago, but it was quite recent that the board gave us some clear direction on how to proceed on our work with the ports. So first, we were directed to begin negotiation on this draft cooperative agreement that the ports gave to us on July 18th. We were also to pause rulemaking for at least 45 days. But if that does not proceed with sufficient progress by September 19th, which is the next Mobile Source Committee, we will be releasing what's called the 75-day rule package, which includes the preliminary draft rule, preliminary draft staff report, et cetera. And then by December, the goal is to have something for the board to act on, whether the cooperative agreement or 2304. Next slide, please.
Madam Chair, if I might ask a question. Who makes the decision on whether it's received enough progress and then release the 75-day rule package on September 19th? Who makes that decision? Is it the Mobile Source Committee or staff?
So I do want to make sure that our executive officer is hearing this question.
Apologies, Mayor. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, who makes the decision on September 19th about whether there's been enough progress and whether the 75-day package is to be released?
Well, staff will certainly come to me and provide me with the information. I'll make a decision to brief the board or to at least brief the chair. in terms of where I think there's substantial agreement or if we don't think there's substantial agreement. And then I would look to the chair to provide guidance, whether that means we have some sort of an initial direction, but we take it to the board for further consideration. Most likely that would happen in October after that 45 days. But we already have a course of action set on day 46, September, I want to say 19th, to go ahead and release the 75-day package. So that could occur. The challenge will then be, is there enough to consider moving forward on what we have to bring to the board? And I may be getting ahead of myself, but ultimately what we would hope is that we could bring to the board an opportunity to decide the rule or the cooperative agreement. And I say hopefully because we still have to get to that agreement. And we would continue to apprise the board through committee meetings and through board meetings, and as well as updates from the public participation meetings.
If I might add, Wayne, that is the day of mobile source. So I do think it's appropriate to get their thoughts about that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Great. All right, so moving on, we're on the next slide now, slide 3. We wanted to talk today mainly about the process moving forward. We know that, of course, getting public feedback, public input on this is absolutely critical. And so we wanted to lay out here what the anticipation for that is over the coming, well, I guess a little less than 45 days now. So first, we're here today, right? Mobile Source Committee. This is, certainly something that we want to make sure the public has an opportunity to weigh in directly with the committee and get committee feedback. And so the idea is to provide, a little bit of a status update here. We did just announce yesterday that we'll be having a public meeting at the end of August 28th. And so the idea there is, again, a status update and to get public feedback. For board in September, I think the plan right now is to have just some brief remarks from the executive officer, just again, a quick status update there. And then depending on how things are going, it's possible that we would do another public meeting before we come back to Mobile Source in September, but I think we need to see how all of this is proceeding.
And those public meetings will be in what kind of format?
Great question. So this first one that we just scheduled would be Zoom only, but evening, 5 p.m. meeting, Zoom for everybody to participate. I think what we've seen in the past is that Zoom actually tends to get more attendance. And part of this is we are moving relatively quickly. And so when it comes to logistics, this is also something that can happen quicker, but including things like translation.
So it'll strictly be Zoom and not a hybrid format?
For this meeting in August, correct.
Yeah, I thought there was clear direction that we were going to have both when it came up.
In order to move quickly within the 45 days, logistically, it'd be very difficult to have a hybrid meeting. The challenge, and we understand that direction, and so the next one will be out in the public space. So we will be having both. Just the first one, in order to keep on track, is going to be hybrid. I'm sorry, Zoom.
Sorry to keep interrupting. Thanks.
No.
No problem. Back to Ian.
Great, thanks. So we'll go to the next slide. So just who's so far taking part in, actually on the previous slide, we said that we're also meeting twice weekly with the ports and city representatives join on an as-needed basis. But one of the first things that we did last week was really just get the negotiating teams together, who is going to be in the room discussing this. And I think from what we've seen so far, I mean, it's still early on, but so far what we've seen is the right people seem to be in the room. There's a lot of detail and nuance that we need to go through, and having people that have the right expertise and knowledge about what's happening at each of the agencies. and the concerns, and to be able to dive deep. So I think we've seen that. And so we will continue to meet twice weekly. We met twice last week. We met once this week so far, and we have another meeting coming up this afternoon.
And from my viewpoint, if I might, Madam Chair, the city representatives should be there all the time. They don't need to be involved, but I think they need to be there. So it's not, in my view, it's not as needed. I think they're needed at every meeting. That's my view. And I know you can't control that. I'm just making that point to our port representative that's here.
Great. And they have been participating thus far.
I'd encourage that as well, and hoping that will happen each meeting. Thank you.
Great. Next slide. So for the public update, we talked about that just a little bit before, but the idea really is, again, to provide a status update, just where we are at the time, right? And there's a period of time that we're going through, and so it's not meant to present a conclusion. For example, at the end of August here, it's really looking at providing an opportunity for comments to come in, and then we'll be taking those comments back, and that will be part of the topics that we'll discuss in these negotiation sessions that we're doing. And of course, we're going to be welcoming public comments throughout all of this. And if there are any written letters that are submitted to either ourselves, we would be posting those onto our website. And if the ports also get comments to them, that they said that they would post them onto their website as well. Next slide. One of the things that we thought was really important, we have come to some good agreement on, is just, I think there's different terms for it: meeting etiquette, meeting hygiene. What is the ground rules for engagement? And I think the key principle here is wanting to make sure that we understand each other clearly. Again, there's a lot of nuance, and so sometimes this means we need to set aside time to make sure we understand what they said, they understand what we said, we're repeating back to each other that we understand, and setting aside time. And so just really setting up, what are those ground rules for engagement? And we think that's been helpful so far, having clear action items moving forward and response times. And so far we've been holding to that, and that's been very helpful. And we're realizing that as we go through, we sometimes need to pivot. We thought a conversation was going to go this way, but it's better to go that way. That's perfectly fine, and there's agreement on that. I think what we've also seen is that all parties so far are very willing to engage. There's not really, quiet, people just sitting in the corner. There's a lot of engagement in all of this. And we also see, what is the role for principals in this? And we see that, certainly that briefing up to the principals on a regular basis on all sides is important. And then they can get engaged as needed on key issues and at the right timing. Similar with our legal teams. Including them and a lot of conversations within each agency, but we'll be bringing them together on appropriate topics. And I also already talked through the public process. Next slide. So I want to pivot now to just a little discussion of what's in the draft cooperative agreement itself. Dr. Reese covered some of this already in the presentation to board. And what I want to present here is what was submitted to us by the ports and the cities. At this point, there has been no changes to any of the language or anything like that as far as any agreed changes to what's been presented. So I'm just going to be presenting what was provided to us. And so the core of it really are these 6 what they call CAP Plus measures, so Clean Air Action Plan measures that really build off of the 2017 Clean Air Action Plan. And some of them are included in the CAP, or some of them are natural outgrowths of what's in the CAP. But that's really the core of what's in this agreement. And there's be regular reporting to the public and to AQMD on how these CAP measures are moving forward, and that would be coming from the ports themselves. For us, if we enter this agreement, what is the AQMD role? And it's supporting the ports' pursuit of grant funding, And then, if we chose to seek SIP credit for any emission reductions out of those CAP plus measures, that would all be on AQMD to do all the quantification, all the work needed for SIP credit, but also importantly to be responsible for any shortfall. If we do make that commitment to EPA on certain emission reductions, that would be on us to figure that out. Next slide. Some of the sort of umbrella components to it, sort of the wrapper around these CAP plus measures. So thinking about the term of this agreement, what's laid out here is it would continue for 10 years through 2035. Really, one of the key provisions that's in there is that we would stop all rulemaking on 2304 and any future rulemaking or SIP control measures to enforce any of the port's CAP goals. But at the same time, there's also a walkaway provision in there that any party can walk away with only 90 days notice and really for any reason. Thinking about flexibility, that's something that we've heard a lot from the ports as we've been going through this entire process over the years, that they want to have flexibility. So what's built into this agreement right now is they really have widespread unilateral ability to change any measure, the timing of it, to substitute it as needed. And so they've given themselves wide flexibility in this agreement. And we would just be notified within 90 days for that original deadline. On the enforceability side, there is a placeholder language, a provision that's open that the ports recognize that this has been a very important consideration for us. And so they did put placeholder language there. I'll talk a little bit more about this in a bit, but there's more to enforceability than just that one placeholder language. I think it's sort of two main things. One is really we're just trying to get at certainty. How can we be certain that actions would occur? But then it's also what would be enforced upon. And I'll touch a little bit more on that in a little bit. There's also a provision in here that there wouldn't be any third-party enforceability, so no outside litigation to enforce anything in this agreement. Next slide. So on these CAP plus measures, again, there's 6 measures. And so on the left, there's 4 measures covering looking kind of at specific vehicle types. So the vessels, trucks, switcher locomotives, that's the on-site switcher locomotives, and cargo handling equipment. There's a 5th measure on workforce development. And then on the right is what we are really focusing a lot of our attention on is on the infrastructure plans for the charging and fueling infrastructure for all source categories. And so what the ports have laid out in this draft cooperative agreement are 3 phases of infrastructure planning to include, first looking at container terminals, cargo handling equipment, and drayage trucks to provide those plans by October 2027. Then looking at all other cargo handling equipment at other kinds of terminals, and then those local switchers 2 years later, that plan would come in. And then a year after that, harborcraft and ocean-going vessels, which of course is going to be probably a very different mix of fuel types compared to the on-land sources. The ports would approve their own plans, and we would just get annual reports as those plans are updated. And again, a lot of flexibility for the ports to change the delivery dates on anything in there. Okay, next slide. So we highlighted some key issues, and we've already talked at a high level with this with the ports, and we anticipate we're going to continue to go into more depth with them, but we haven't covered all of this yet, certainly, as we're early on. Of course, the first thing that caught our eye is the prohibition on us exercising any regulatory authority, and for a 10-year period. There's some other pieces in here too that discuss what our authority is or discuss what the port's authority is. And I think we want to continue to talk to the ports on that and understand the purpose of that and whether that's needed in that way there. So there's some things we want to talk about with authority. On enforceability, I touched on this a little bit. There's, really it's what would be enforced upon. And are there any outcomes or targets or goals that should be put in here? And so that we have an assurance that if there's a program that's being pursued, it's going to do something. And wanting to explore that concept and how can that be folded into the agreement. So we're still going to talk to them about that. And that's separate from thinking about consequences, things like financial penalties or what have you. But there's, I think, so those multiple sides to enforceability. CEQA, of course, I think a lot of this is just trying to think about timing. When does CEQA come in? How does it get incorporated? At what time? Who's doing it? So we just need to talk through that. There's a lot of nuance in that one. Thinking about our role, and again, Dr. Reese covered this a couple weeks ago. Right now, the agreement really just has us watching. We just watch what happens and we get reports on it. And is that the appropriate role for AQMD, which is traditionally an oversight agency? That's more of our role as a regulatory agency. And so trying to understand what is our role, and that potentially could be different on different measures. So we still are going to continue to explore that with the ports. I think that we just want to make sure that there's a clear understanding on pursuing funding. Of course, we're interested in joint pursuit of funding. We've done a lot of that in the past with the ports and quite successfully, and just making sure the language is clear on that. And then on the CAP Plus measures themselves, again, thinking about what are the measurable actions that are in there, and how can you build in steps towards actions, and how do you ensure that the program is effective? Trying to understand, what's the role of their board approval compared to AQMD's role with this agreement. And there's some many CAP measures that are here, but the CAP is a very large document, a lot of things that are there. And we don't necessarily think that this agreement has to be all encompassing and have absolutely everything, but there are some CAP measures that seem to be missing, and so we wanted to talk about that as well. Next slide. Just so to date, what have we gone through? So I touched a little bit last week. It's kind of just organizing ourselves, talking about process, making sure we're in agreement how we're going to be engaging with each other, and highlighting some of these key issues at the high level, and then start to figure out how to drill down more into it. This week, we've started talking a little bit about what could our role look like on different kinds of measures, and try to explore it a little bit, see some key principles that might make sense. And I think we're still working through that. There's been interest in getting very quickly to enforceability. And again, there's a lot of different components to that. I think we're focusing more on what would we be enforcing on rather than the consequence side of that. We're going to have to cover all of it, but just where we are to date. We did say, and I'm just here, when we put these slides together, our thought was that, say, for example, this afternoon, we'd be talking more about regulatory authority. And I think what we've discovered is that we're really interested in talking about infrastructure. What does that look like? And so we've already pivoted, and we're in agreement that we're going to be talking more about infrastructure today. And so that's a status update where we are. Last slide. So we talked about this public meeting coming up in late August. That will be on the 28th at 5 p.m. We will be providing this, very brief update in September board, and then of course coming back to this committee in September as well, and continuing on with this entire negotiation process. With that, I'll conclude my presentation, and we're available for questions.
Thank you so much. I'm going to just open it up to board members for questions. If you don't mind using the raise your hand feature, since we're all in different places. And then after that, I will open it up for questions or comments from the public. Supervisor Mitchell.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and thank you. Two questions for me. First, just in terms of process, since the presentation is basically the exact same we saw at board meeting, what's your expectation? What's the point of it being before committee today? Just to hear public comment again? I don't know that it's appropriate for us in committee to kind of, relitigate all that was discussed in the full board meeting. So what's your expectation from today?
I think we did just want to provide an update on where we are in the negotiations. We were given direction to begin negotiating, and I think we wanted to make sure the committee knew that has started, and
okay.
What is this going to look like moving forward?
Okay, I appreciate that. And for me, when we talk about negotiations, I get the impression, I guess that it's a rather open-ended. When I look at your chart, your slide that shows the enforcement box, I'm clear that there is a document that the ports have submitted to us. And so when you talk about negotiations, are we bringing forward our intent around those areas, particularly around enforceability, because that's, I heard pretty consistent across for all board members. That was something people were concerned about. Are we going to start from their document? Are you bringing forward AQMD, preferences? And I'm asking these kind of questions because it is such a short period of time. How are you all kind of approaching your negotiations? Is it completely open-ended, or are you coming with preferences on the table too? So it's the two ends trying to get to the middle.
Yeah, great question. So I think where we have started is trying to make sure we understand what are key concerns for the ports when it comes to enforceability. I think there's a lot of different ways to get there. One of the things that I think is really important about enforceability is the end goal is certainty. And how do we get to certainty? And so that's where I think we're trying to understand as we look at how do you build in processes to understand what is our role for oversight, or understand what is a public's role in providing feedback to the ports to make sure that their plans are going to make sense and are achievable. And it's sort of building in those processes and trying to understand, are there particular sensitivities there? We also know that consequences are going to have to be part of the conversation as well. And so I think right now we're trying to lay the groundwork. And then once we make sure we have an understanding, we want to start, then putting forward some, more specifics on here's what we might be proposing as some examples for the ports.
I appreciate that, and I'll just state again, since we're discussing it again, just for the record, that to restate my deep concern around enforceability, and you said consequences. If the ports are empowered to approve really all their own plans, they can modify any of their measures and can extend deadlines. If they have all of that power, it really concerns me, because I don't see how this document would be any different from a new unilateral cap. So again, hoping that we can develop a mechanism that's real and authentic in terms of accountability. As I stated before, the ban on regulatory authority is a non-starter for me. I don't know that any of us who serve on elected bodies would tie our hands that way. Because why serve if we indeed give all of our power away? I completely support the partnership with regard to looking for funding. Not quite sure where that would come from, but agree that we should look for that funding. Not sure if the ports would commit to paying for any of it themselves if funding isn't found. So that would be another question I'd raise. And the last thing for me is, the emissions targets. Really wanting to be able to see in whatever comes out of this process, specific emissions targets in the rule. It's not enough from my perspective. I mean, we have to include, the reduction of actual polluting equipment as opposed to just augmenting with non-polluting equipment. I mean, if we want to see a reduction, we have to take some of the polluters, if you will, away. So I hope those are things that will be addressed in a part of the negotiations, and I look forward to September 19th to see what direction we'll be going forward in. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Rahman.
Thank you so much. Just a couple of questions. Has staff analyzed the CAP Plus measures, assuming that they were able to be fully implemented? Like, what kind of emissions reductions could we anticipate from this? Or is that part of the work that you're doing right now?
Madam Chair, may I make an announcement now regarding Board Member Rahman? This is an announcement that we apply during contracts. And I'm not sure we're actually at the stage of a contract, but in the interest of being safer, we're going to make a disclosure, which is obvious to all of you. Board Member Rahman is a member of the City Council of the City of Los Angeles, which is involved in this item. She does not have a financial interest and may participate. Thank you, and I apologize for the interruption.
No, thank you. I appreciate your diligence and please let me know what I should be careful of as a member of the LA City Council. Yeah, so
Thanks for your question about um, uh, asking if we've analyzed the cap plus measures and what kind of emission reductions could be achieved from what's in the agreement. And I think a couple thoughts. One is that so far we've heard that there is no interest in including specific emission reduction targets. I think the ports have said that they're really more interested in looking at specific actions that could be taken. But to that point, what we have raised with them is that we want to explore how can outcomes be included in this, because right now the agreement just includes actions to improve a program, but we're really interested in understanding to what end. And I think there's different ways to get there, but right now there isn't really anything that we could do to quantify emission reductions from what's in the current draft language, because there really aren't any targets or goals or outcomes that are included in it.
but wouldn't the actions described result in emissions reductions? Like even if there's no target set, wouldn't we be able to figure out, okay, this will yield X amount
I
of?
think, if I may, I think depending
Yeah.
on the actions, and we're still evaluating this and talking with the ports about what some of these cap plus measures really mean.
Okay.
You know, theoretically could be some emission reductions quantified. That's something that we certainly are always interested in moving forward, as we need emission reductions. But I will emphasize again a point that Mr. McMillan raised in his presentation, that, you know, we are very interested in the infrastructure planning components of this. You know, our Rule 2304 was focused squarely on infrastructure, didn't have additional emission reduction targets, for example, because we all recognize that that was the threshold question that needed to be addressed so to facilitate eventually getting to those emission reductions. So I just want to put that out there for perspective. You know, I will say the ports so far have indicated a willingness to talk with us about, you know, what particular actions mean and how you get to those outcomes that Mr. McMillan mentioned. And so we're still continuing those discussions.
Great. And then I just had one more question, which is SB 34 a component of the discussions that you're having with the ports? And kind of their efforts to work on that at the state level, is that being actively discussed as part of your conversations, or is that just kind of happening in parallel? Or maybe there's updates to that discussion that I'm not privy to that you might be able to share here.
Yeah, we're not discussing SB 34 as part of this negotiation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other board members' hands raised. Does anybody else want to ask any questions?
Madam Chair, when we get to public comment, we have two public commenters here in person.
Okay, yeah, let's move to that then. If the board members don't have any other questions, why don't you go ahead and start?
Thank you very much. First of all, we have Heather Tomlin from the Port of Long Beach. Heather?
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Delgado, members of the Mobile Source Committee. I'm Heather Tomley with Port of Long Beach, and I'm happy to be here this morning to talk about the progress that we're making with your staff on the cooperative agreement. I wanted to express our continued commitment to working with your staff to get to a successful outcome on the cooperative agreement. As you all know, the agreement was offered by the ports a month ago as a alternative to the rule and a better path forward to getting to the outcomes that we want to see. And included in what we have proposed, we believe that there are quantifiable emission reductions. We're happy to work with your staff as we continue to explore those measures and the outcomes that they can provide, and also preserving the voluntary cooperation that has been so important to our success and progress that we've been making over the years. The agreement that we offered, as Ian laid out this morning, it includes zero emission infrastructure planning and implementation. That is a commitment of ours as well. And in addition, we wanted to include strategies that are focusing on emission reductions that could be achieved from ships, trucks, terminal equipment, and switcher locomotives, and also programs to help support the workforce as we transition to zero emission equipment technologies. We're continuing we're committed to continuing to meet with your staff. We've been meeting with urgency over the last couple of weeks since the action was taken at the AQMD board meeting a couple of weeks ago. And we will continue to work with negotiating the language to ensure that the CAP Plus measures, the accountability and enforcement provisions, and other terms are all developed to the satisfaction of all parties. So we're down now to 35 days from mid-September. We are definitely feeling the weight of that schedule, and we're committed to continuing to have those discussions with urgency so that we can identify the cooperative agreement as the clear path forward for the way to achieve our goals. We appreciate the opportunity that the governing board gave to us to allow us to have these discussions and negotiations on the agreement, and we're committed to do our part to make sure that we can be successful in finalizing the agreement in a way that can help to support clean air. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Next, we have Chris Chavez from the Coalition for Clean Air. Chris?
Board members, Chris Chavez, Coalition for Clean Air. We continue to have significant concerns about this proposal and are currently in opposition. We're opposed to the provisions that would prevent this district from being able to enforce regulations for 10 years. That's something that goes beyond what SB 34 is even proposed, and even that bill is extreme. We are really concerned that this basically means that the district will be surrendering its authority to enforce any sort of rulemaking over the largest emission sources, one of the largest emission sources in the state. We also are very concerned about the lack of public enforceability. If this district submits this measure into the SIP, it is publicly enforceable. So having no third-party enforceability is also a non-starter. We also think it's ridiculous that the ports would have unilateral authority to change their own plans and deadlines. That really allows the ports just to change the goals whenever they see fit, to change whenever they commit to. And this is stuff that the ports have already committed to. That's what the basis of this proposal is the cap. It's things that they've already promised to do. It does not move much beyond that. So we do think that is being able to change their own plans with only minimal notice to the district, no consultation to the public, no consultation to the communities impacted by this decision is also a non-starter. And lastly, this does not address the district's obligation to implement all feasible measures under state law. The fact that this district has passed an indirect source rule on the warehouses means that indirect source rule is a feasible measure. The fact that other air districts, the San Joaquin Air District, has passed indirect source rules on other, relating to other issues within their jurisdiction, means that indirect source rule is a feasible measure. This is something that the district needs to take seriously and something that the district needs to make sure that they are complying with. So again, I do want to express some level of appreciation. This is a far better proposal in the sense of what they last proposed back in 2022, 2021, which just basically said we only want one part of the cap to be the MOU. But this still doesn't go far enough. This doesn't address the many outstanding issues. And the fact is that this is now a closed door agreement that's being negotiated out without any public consultation during the process. The last MOU process did have a public consultative process. We're now looking at maybe one or two, if we're lucky, public meetings to provide input. So still have tremendous concerns about this and think this is not the right direction for Southern California, the smoggiest air basin in the nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, for your comments. Madam Chair, that's all we have here.
Okay. And Supervisor Mitchell, do you have anybody who would like to speak in your office?
Yes. No, they can see you. Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okay.
Good morning, Chair. My name is Fernando Gaitan with Earth Justice. I want to start by recognizing that the ports have identified measures they believe may deliver quantifiable emissions reductions. CEO Soroka and Cordero have said as much, and that's promising, that's encouraging, but we have to be crystal clear. These measures are not new. They come from the 2017 Clean Air Action Plan, which means they've existed in concept for years. Notably, the cap also included emission reduction projections for the very same kind of measures you're seeing in this proposal, demonstrating that the ports are clearly capable of setting enforceable emission reduction targets. Yet this proposal presents none. We have been at this rulemaking process for 4 years now, and on the verge of bringing a rule to the board, these measures and others are suddenly presented as an alternative. That raises real concerns about bypassing the transparent democratic process that has allowed all stakeholders to weigh in. These proposals could have come through that rulemaking process, to be quite honest. And voluntary measures, to be clear, no matter how promising, won't bring the needed relief without enforceable guarantees. A rule sets clear enforceable targets that ports must meet, ensuring accountability and measurable progress. Without enforceable commitments, we risk relying on promises rather than protections. This is why we urge you to stay the course on rulemaking. Do not cede your regulatory authority in exchange for voluntary promises with no teeth. The health of our communities depend on enforceable emission reductions backed by law, not just intention. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Councilmember Rahman, do you have anybody who would like to speak in your office?
Sorry, we do not here. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Rodriguez, do you have anybody?
No, not today. Thank you.
Okay, and I do, so I'm gonna have our first speaker come to the screen.
Sorry, we've got a spill here. Good morning. Good morning, board members. My name is Artie Mandel, Director of Government Affairs for the Port of LA. I want to thank committee members and the board for their direction to staff at the board meeting on August 1st and giving the ports and the cities the opportunity to negotiate this cooperative agreement. Thank you, Ian and staff, for the presentation and for the productive engagement that we've had so far in the 3 negotiating sessions that we've had, with the 4th coming in a few hours this afternoon. I want to use my time largely to echo Ian's presentation on kind of where we are and where we're going. In our 3 sessions so far, we focused on setting ground rules and process, including a process for public and community engagement. And we've really started to dive into the substance of the issues that were raised by staff and members of the public, as Ian laid out in his presentation in detail. And while it's still early in the conversations, it's also, quickly getting late. But we have been able to drill into many of these substantive issues around, role and authority of the district and accountability and enforcement that have been discussed today. And I really do believe we're close to consensus on many of these issues, while others will, of course, take a lot more time and work. We're also committed to transparency and public engagement throughout this process. And we're pleased that we're going to be having at least one public community meeting to receive feedback. We've also agreed to post all letters and comments that we've received on our websites publicly and provide weekly written updates on our websites. And the Port of LA, we will continue our individual engagement with community members and stakeholders, including any board members if desired as well. I really just want to emphasize the port's commitment to this process and meeting the directions set by the board to deliver on this agreement by the mid-September deadline. Thank you, and look forward to continuing the work this afternoon.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Delgado, members of the Mobile Source Committee. My name is Thomas Yelenich with the Pacific Merchant Shipping Association. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and comment on this item. I'm really heartened by what I hear today. I think we have, with the clear direction on August 1st from the board, we have a real chance of achieving a strong agreement. The proposal builds on the real, quantifiable, and authentic emission reductions that have been achieved by the Clean Air Action Plan. And there are a lot of elements of this proposal and this process that I think will benefit all stakeholders. The public engagement is important. Appreciate staff scheduling the August 28th meeting, and I appreciate their commitment that a subsequent meeting will have an in-person hybrid component. The agreement, I would like to also emphasize that the agreement here that has been offered by the ports offers more than proposed Rule 2304, and it does so in a way that respects all the roles of stakeholders. We have the chance to go beyond what was envisioned in 2304 through mechanisms that the board have suggested that will focus on infrastructure planning, infrastructure development, real emission reductions, and transparent public reporting. I think those are all real elements that are going to be really achievable through this cooperative agreement and go far beyond what can be achieved in a regulatory approach. The last thing I would like to leave with this committee, I think it's really important, the comments that were made at the very beginning of this item, that it's important that the Mobile Source Committee weigh in on this and take a look at where we are come September 19th in terms of this process. I'm confident that the ports and AQMD staff will be able to come to substantial agreement on a number of elements, and that should be the Mobile Source Committee's role in determining whether or not a regulatory package is released. So I thank this committee for taking that responsibility and that role on here, and look forward to participating in the public process that staff has laid out. Thank you.
Okay, those are the two speakers in the office, and now we're going to go to the online comments, public comments. So with that, we'll start with David Petit.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair and board members. This is David Pettit. I'm a lawyer with the Center for Biological Diversity. I want to talk briefly about both the process and the merits. It's nice to see Tom. I haven't seen him in a while, and I'll bet he and I are the only people in the meeting today who've been involved in this stuff since Henry Hogo was on your staff many years ago. And we've seen stop and start processes by the board and by the district. And I think it's time, for the reasons that Chris Chavez mentioned, it's time to get our act together and finish this task in a way that's enforceable and protective of public health. I'm particularly concerned about the closed door meetings. I just learned there have been 3 of them. You're having another one today. The community is shut out of those. And we've seen numerous occasions where an MOU or a private agreement is negotiated and then it's presented to the public with little meaningful chance to affect it, and then it gets enacted. I don't want to see that happen again here. On the merits, it's not just a bad idea to give away your police powers, as Supervisor Mitchell mentioned. It's illegal. You can't do that. And if you have any doubts, I suggest you ask Barbara Baird, an excellent lawyer who's sitting right in the chamber in front of you. This is a voluntary agreement as it's planned. There's nothing in there that's going to be SIP creditable. You're not going to get any SIP benefits out of this thing. You're facing a hostile administration in Washington that I'm sure would be happy to take any opportunity to hurt California, in particular for being out of attainment, far out of attainment. And lastly, on the CEQA process, one of the issues in CEQA is going to be whether the district and the ports considered alternatives and what happened to them. And so at the end of the day, it's not going to be the district's choice or the board's choice whether to go down this route. A judge or panel of judges is going to have the say on whether the parties here dealt with the alternatives correctly. And I urge everyone to keep that in mind. Thank you for your time.
Apologies for not pronouncing your last name correctly. Fernando Duarte.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Good morning, board members. Well, Fernando Marquez, from PSEDGE, and well, while I appreciate the efforts to get to any kind of
I'm sorry, we're
agreement,
having difficulty hearing the speaker. Could the speaker speak closer to the microphone, please?
can you hear me better now?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Yeah. So again, Fernando Marquez from PSEDGE, while I appreciate the efforts
Perhaps
to
you could speak more forcefully closer to the microphone. You were fading off quite a bit.
here, that's the closest I can get.
You need to speak more forcefully so that we can hear you. I'm sorry, you fade.
Okay. So this is the closest I can get to the mic.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. So again, Fernando Marquez from PSEDGE, and there is a clear lack of public input and participation of the public in this agreement. I don't see how it is called a cooperative agreement with enforceable measures when we see no enforceability. We, the staff already debrief on the meetings, and it seems there hasn't been any real discussion of enforceability measures. And if you add that there is no public engagement, because these are negotiations that are not considering the public, these are closed-door negotiations, which is extremely concerning. I don't see how this agreement could do any good for the community. Like the updates that have been given are not clear. I don't see any advancement towards the enforceability discussions. In the agreement proposed by the ports and the cities, it clearly says there won't be any third-party enforceability, which is then what's the enforceability? There is a concerning trend here to leave out the community from this process, which is more concerning considering that the rule has been passed due to this agreement that doesn't seem to be adequate for the community. I think that the AQMD should seek the best for the community, and that for me, and I think for most of the community, includes an enforceable regulation that includes the public in all the stages and in all the meetings. I don't think that is enough to have just one or two public meetings, especially if these updates that are given are not clear. In these updates, there wasn't mentioned any details, so we are going blind to these public meetings. So what's the point then? So again, I'm calling staff to have clear updates and also to include the public and the community in these meetings. Thank you, and sorry for the audio issues.
Thank you. Thurl.
I am unmuting. Daryl Golden, West Long Beach. And I want to ditto a lot of the previous comments about the process. But the action itself, by going to a cooperative agreement, we have one state agency talking to another state agency about being regulated. The port is not a private entity. This is a public domain. They are pumping gas into the homes of the people in the community, by which is killing them. This should be a no-brainer that any type of agreement they come up with is null and void. People have the right to defend themselves in this country. And the Constitution says public enemies. That's what this port has developed itself to be. When you're striking people down daily in these communities with death That is wrong. It has to stop. This cannot be made nice when you're taking people's lives. You shouldn't be taking anything that you can't give back. The port is a public agency under the state of California, which has given AQMD the right to regulate. And we're dancing around a circle acting like it's Christmas Eve. And we are one moment from a demise here in this community. And that is wrong. And I want to thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Thero. And then I will be closing the queue after Evelyn Cruz Jimenez speak. She will be our last speaker. Antonio Torres. Are we having issues with the audio there? Let's
Can you
go
hear
to,
me?
oh, there you go.
Oh, sorry. Good morning. My name is Antonio Torres. I live in Paris and I'm a student at UC Riverside, one of the most polluted UC campuses in the state. For nearly 2 decades, this agency has delayed adopting a real and direct source rule for the San Pedro Bay ports, the largest fixed source of NOx emissions in the region. No binding targets, no timeline, no enforcement. Meanwhile, we live in smog alerts, not just heat alerts, that leads to great health problems and economic inequality. Most hazy days are not due to weather, that's pollution. We need measurable results. This is not a debate between good and bad or right versus wrong. It's about what's necessary. And it is necessary to regulate the ports with a real enforceable ports ISR. Set targets, cut emissions, protect the people who breathe this air. As a public institution, show us what you value. We don't need another agreement, we need courage. Pass the port's ISR, make it binding. Communities like mine can't wait. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Allison, Pam?
Hi, good morning. My name is Allison Hom. I'm an attorney with Natural Resources Defense Council and member of the Impact Project. I think we need to be honest about what's happening here. The public is being asked to weigh in on a proposal that still lacks clear emission targets and enforcement mechanisms. The provisions meant to ensure accountability are still empty placeholders. The most important parts are still unwritten, and that's not public process. Communities are being told to trust that the details will come later, but we've seen this before. When enforcement is treated as an afterthought, protections never materialize. MOUs are not a substitute for rules. If we take this approach on the port's ISR, then where do we draw the line? What other clean air rules will be rolled back and watered down? As Thurl and Antonio just stated, when public health is at stake, it's not acceptable to take this approach. If the goal is real accountability, then the commitments must be real and enforceable from the start. Anything less is a failure of both process and purpose. The Impact Project submitted a letter this week. In this letter, we stated, in the absence of federal leadership, during a period of unprecedented cargo volume and worsening air quality here in Southern California, a greater responsibility rests on local leaders and agencies to protect human health and the environment. We hope AQMD takes this to heart. Halting public health rulemaking to pursue a voluntary MOU only makes it harder for AQMD to do its job. Protect people, write the rules, and make them enforceable. Please do this in the light of day. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Adrian Martinez.
Good morning. My name is Adrian Martinez, resident in the South Coast and work for Earth Justice. The first thing I'd like to just respond to is Mr. Jelinich from Pacific Maritime Shipping Association mentioned that the agreement that the ports of LA and ports of Long Beach proposed addresses the issues of all stakeholders. And, I really view myself and my 10-year-old daughter and my, the rest of my family as a stakeholder here. And I want to be clear that a 10-year ban on pursuing regulations to protect the health of myself, my family, my friends, my clients, um, is not in the interest of all stakeholders. This poison pill should not be in any agreement, and the fact it is even part of the discussion is really bad. And I agree that there are legal implications to signing away your police power authority. But I also wanted to reflect on something that happened earlier this week about another agreement that was signed. Several companies entered into agreement with the California Air Resources Board called the Clean Truck Partnership. And on Monday of this week, several of those participants sued the California Air Resources Board, trying to get a court to enjoin the implementation of that agreement. They even entered into an agreement with the Federal Trade Commission, um, proposing all sorts of restraints on what those companies can do. There's a real big downside to these agreements. I've been monitoring closely the airport MOUs. That's a big deal once the MOUs get signed, but then enforcement and monitoring and progress isn't followed up on. And these are issues that this board, some of you may still be on the board when these issues come up, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 years down the road. But these are issues that we're going to be dealing with as we're trying to get the massive amount of emissions reductions needed to attain. And so I just encourage the board to really think about this, focus on an agreement. Um, those participants who sued the California Air Resources Board 2 years ago were voluntarily coming to the table and coming to an agreement. And a couple years down the road, they're suing the agency, seeking an injunction and entering into agreements with the Federal Trade Commission that would preclude the enforcement of the agreement. There's a lot of downsides to voluntary approaches, particularly with some of the largest pollution sources in the region. So I encourage proceed with extreme caution, open it up for more public input. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrienne. Jennifer from Sierra Club.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jennifer. I'm with Sierra Club. I find this a little outrageous that we're having this meeting about you all losing authority for 10 years. And according to the website, which I would love to regurgitate this because I think it's a great reminder, South Coast AQMD Governing Board adopts policies and regulations that promote clean air within its 4 county areas, the smoggiest in the nation. By the way, that's on the website. Federal and state law requires that South Coast AQMD achieve clean air standards to protect the public health. Before it makes decisions that affect local residents, businesses, South Coast AQMD must consider ideas and comments from the public. The opportunity for comment begins in public workshops and ends with a public hearing by the governing board where anyone can testify and present written comments. How's that going to look like if all of you decide to give away your rights for the next 10 years for an agreement? If it was really cooperative, if it was a collaboration, why would you have to give up any type of authority in order to make this possible? This is really concerning, especially when we have community members continuously telling us how their health has been impacted for generations. This hasn't been something new that just came up. We have seen this for almost 20 years. Almost 20 years. Community has been pushing for this. This deja vu of an MOU is it's not a little bit, it's very concerning that we were so close and now we have a completely different schedule. I hope that when board members that are supposed to ensure our air quality review this, they consider what their actual job is supposed to be. Because we have failed when it comes to air regulations. And what has the port done since, in the last 20 years, what have they done that has been so different than what they're proposing now? We saw what a port ISR can do. And for us to even consider this seems very ridiculous. And I'm sorry about that. It's really frustrating when I have to talk to community members who have to check air quality in their neighborhoods because their children can have asthma attacks, because their elderly can't even go outside. And now we're proposing giving away rights and even taking away public comments, and not completely taking away, but ensuring that community members are not able to speak. That is going to be really difficult when it's already hard enough to have people show up on a morning on a Friday when most people are working. So I really hope y'all make this possible for community to have actual input.
Thank you. Evelyn Cruz Jimenez, our final speaker online.
Hello, my name is Evelyn, and I am also a UCR student. I'm here today because we need port emission regulations and not an MOU. Without a regulation for emission reduction, there is no assurance that air quality will be improved. While you continue to talk about negotiations, port communities and communities in the IE continue to suffer the consequences. During my time as a student at UCR, I have had the opportunity to work with many of these communities, such as Colton, San Bernardino, Highland, and Riverside. Many of these community members suffer from asthma and neither have or know someone who has cancer. I'd also like to remind you that the State of Air Report of 2024, published in ALA, shows that the counties of San Bernardino and Riverside came in first and second place nationally for the worst ozone pollution levels. Had zero emission regulations in the ports had already been implemented, it is estimated that the reductions in the transportation sector, pollutants, and carbon dioxide emissions would have prevented approximately 150,000 premature deaths. With this, I ask that you continue to work on the Port ISR to be voted in and not an MOU. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes public comment. Staff, is there anything that you needed at this presentation? Anything else that we need on this item?
You know, Chair, the only thing that I want to add is that we're talking about public participation and communication. And we've talked about, we're going to have the Zoom meeting and that we'll have another hybrid meeting. But I want the public and everyone to understand that this process doesn't end in 45 days. This process will continue on. And so we believe that there will be many opportunities for public involvement. And we certainly look forward to the public commenting on the existing plan. We hope to be able to continue to provide updates to our respective cities, our ports, our boards, our commissions on the progress. And I want to really stress progress that's being made as we continue to move forward. So we encourage that participation. We will try to make every opportunity available for it. As I said before, we're almost working on a 2-week schedule. I think that's unheard of in terms of providing updates and information to all of the parties involved. So I just wanted to remind everyone of that opportunity and the accelerated schedule and our commitment to continue to work with all parties to advance this to where the board has options come December. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that takes us to written reports. Ian, those are both your items. Is there anything that you need to present or discuss with those items?
Madam Chair, I just have an observation, if I might, on the WARE report.
Yeah.
The WARE report is very, seems to provide information on WARE points, amount of funding that has been achieved through the agreement or the rule. And one thing that's missing is what are the estimates of any emission reductions that have been achieved by this rule at all? I see there's lots of money that we brought in and there's lots of discussion about WARE points and submitting reports and all of that stuff, but emissions, it's absent from the report.
Yeah, we could certainly add that in. We do report that every year in our annual report. We provide an estimate of the emission reductions, but because it is an annual program, there's not really much update in between the annual report periods. But if
Well, it would seem
Right.
to me that we're making progress on getting money and establishing wear points and all that. It would be interesting to see what emission reductions over time have occurred because of this program. Otherwise, all we're doing is raising money.
Yeah, we can add that.
I apologize. The reports are also included in one item for Dr. Lees. Any other questions on items 2 to 4, the written reports? Is there anybody who would like to provide comment on that at any of the locations or online? I do see one hand raised. Sarah Wiltfong.
Hi, good morning, Mobile Source Committee members. My name is Sarah Wiltfong, and I'm here on behalf of the Supply Chain Federation, which is a broad coalition of ports, warehouses, transportation, labor, and other key links in the supply chain. Just wanted to make a quick comment on the WARE program. The Supply Chain Federation did recently commission Ramble to conduct a review of the program, which we have provided to staff for their consideration. We think the report includes some noteworthy observations, in particular to what Mayor McCallum mentioned regarding emission reductions. And we do look forward to discussing those findings with the staff and then with the board afterwards. So just wanted to make aware to the committee that we have commissioned Ramble to take a look at it. And we look forward to discussing the findings further with staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I don't see any other hands raised. And I don't have any other business that we need to share. So I'll just go straight to item number 6, which is public comment for items within this committee's authority that are not on the agenda. Is there anybody in the locations that would like to speak? Don't see any hands raised online. All right, so our next meeting is September 19th. It'll be a very interesting discussion, I'm sure. And we'll see you all then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.